this tutorial, we'll start exploring the basic elements of using Adobe InDesign. InDesign is the industry-leading layout and page design software for print and digital media. InDesign has everything you need to create and publish books, digital magazines, ebooks, posters, interactive PDFs, and more. The objective of this tutorial is to learn how to create a new document, use frames to place images, apply text, and package files. First, I'd like to point out that Adobe has a wonderful Learn and Support website. Each program has their own Learn and Support, so if you type in Adobe InDesign Learn and Support, you'll see this main page has a set of tutorials. You can sort by beginner or experienced, and there's lots of great tutorials in there. And then also the complete user guide. So you would use the topics sidebar on the left and then narrow down the topic you're looking for, and it's free, available to anybody, always current and updated. So bookmark the Learn and Support webpage from Adobe InDesign. We're going to make a simple cover page that includes an image frame and also a text frame. We'll talk about creating a new document, margins, bleeds, and what the different guidelines mean in your document. And we will talk about the different usage of frames, using graphics and text, and then we will package our document to combine all of the assets that we included, and we will compress that file for submission. Open up InDesign, and you can click the Create New button or go up to File, New, Document. This is going to be a letter-sized document. You can find that in the Print tab at the top. It's usually the first preset there. Letter-sized document is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. We'll keep it a portrait orientation where the height is greater than the width. I can uncheck facing pages. We'll have one page in this document, and then we'll go down to the arrow next to margins. And if I have this link selected to the right of the margin area, then I can click inside any one of these top, left, bottom, or right margin boxes, and they will all stay the same number that we put in there. So we'll make our margins 0.25 inches all the way around. So the margins are the guides that will keep us a good distance away from the edges of our document. Next, we can click the arrow next to Bleed and Slug. Bleed is when you have an image or color on your document that goes up to the edges. In order to keep that color or graphic from getting accidentally chopped off, maybe in the production portion of the process, we add what's called a bleed to the document. And you extend that graphic or the colors out to that bleed, and then if there is any accidental shifting, it won't be noticed. So I also have that link to make all the settings the same. Click to the right of the bleed section, and I'll click the up arrow once and make our bleed 0.125 inches. Now we're ready to click the blue Create button. So here's our single page document, and you can see that it has some guides that have been placed in here. The dark gray area of our workspace is our pasteboard. So this is the non-live areas of our document. Where the white meets that dark gray is the edge of the paper, or the edge of the document. The red line in the gray area, that's our bleed line, so we'll extend any colors or graphics that go to the edge of the document, we'll bring them out to the bleed line. And then this interior magenta colored guide is our margin. So we'd never want maybe something like text going right up to the edge of our document. That can make it difficult to read or get cut off potentially. So we use margins to consistently stay inside the document a healthy space away from the edge. First thing we'll do is save our document. Go up to File, Save As, navigate to your Adobe Design Suite folder, and we'll make a new folder titled Lab 04-ID, which stands for InDesign, -cover page. So you can see how my file structure is looking right now. I have 5 folders located in my Adobe Design Suite folder, Labs 1 through 4, and my photo library. Let's open up the Lab 04 ID cover page folder. And now we'll save the document. If I go down to where it says Save as Type, and I click that arrow, you'll see that we don't have many options for formats, different formats for saving in InDesign. You've got the standard .indd, that stands for InDesign document. You've got an InDesign template and also an IDML file. So if you wanted to be able to open up your InDesign document in an older version, you would want to also save a copy as an IDML. But for the most part, you're going to be using the .indd format. So where it says file name, I'm just going to highlight where it says Untitled 1. We never want to delete our file extension, and we never want to hand type it in either. We want that format bar to be able to choose that. So you always want to make sure that your file extension and your format match. We'll title this Your Last Name -04 -ID -cover page .indd. Double check that you're in the correct folder, Lab 4 ID cover page, and then you can click Save. And your tab for your document should now show that new file name we just added, and we're ready to go. Alright, so we'll start with placing a graphic into a frame. If you click F on your keyboard, F as in frame, regardless if you're on a PC or a Mac, that will take you to your rectangle frame tool. So it looks like a rectangle with an X inside. And that X indicates a placeholder. Something is going to be placed in there. We're just going to make this a simple cover page with one large graphic that goes from bleed edge to bleed edge. So I'll go up in the upper left corner to the bleed margin, and then I'll hold my mouse key down and drag it to the lower right hand corner bleed edge and then release. So I can see I have a selected frame right now. I can see the corner handles. So if you do need to resize that, I would have you go up to the selection tool. V as in Victor will also get you there, and you can adjust these handles either in the corners or in the centers and make sure it snaps into those bleed margins. So if I look over on the right side panel in the properties panel, I have my frame selected and it's showing me the width of my frame is 8.75 inches by 11.25 inches high. And that's what we're looking for. So we can give it a quick save to our document. And then we're ready to place our image into the frame. You can go up to File, Place, navigate back into your Adobe Design Suite folder, and we'll locate the Photo Library folder. Pick out a picture that you'd like to use. You would select it and then click the Open button. It's always smart to save after each big action so that if you do run into problems, hopefully you won't have to go back too many steps. Like right now there's a thunderstorm going on outside, so potentially my power could go out at any moment, so I would want to save frequently. But even when there's not a thunderstorm, it's a good habit to get into. We now have one frame with a graphic placed inside. I am on my selection tool, the black arrow. So if I were to click just once inside that frame, I could move the frame and the graphic around together. Now if I double click inside that frame, you'll see that I get this additional bounding box here. It's kind of a brown color, and that's the borders of my graphic. So if I click inside there, I can move my graphic around independent of the frame. So the frame's staying in the same place, I'm just moving the picture around inside of it. And you can see the area that's getting cropped off right now. So, and that's basically what we're doing, is we're cropping off areas. So for my image, what I need to do is I need to transform it and rotate it 90 degrees so that it's more standard for this frame size. So I do have my graphic selected. I can see that brown margin, and I can transform either by going to one of the corner points on the graphic. You'll see how your cursor changes to a curved double arrow, and you can click and you can drag that way. Or through my properties panel, you'll locate the rotation angle box here, and it shows me that I just moved the degree of rotation to 12 degrees. So I could just click that arrow because I know I want it to be either 90 degrees or negative 90. Looks like mine is 90 degrees. So now the shape of both the graphic and the frame are fitting a little bit better. I'm going to click out. Now I've deselected everything, and I want to click back on the frame itself. So not just the graphic, the frame. So make sure that the bounding box is a blue color, and we can adjust the fitting inside of here in a few different ways. Some of the automatic fitting options are available in the Object menu at the top. If you go down to Fitting, we could try these different options. The first one is fill frame proportionately. So that means it's not distorting the image, it's keeping the proportions the same. It's not making it looked squeezed or stretched out too much. It's still perfectly proportional, and it fit the entire frame edge to edge with that graphic. I can undo that just so we can go through the different fitting examples. And up in the Edit menu at the top, the very top option, Undo, will take you back one step. So I can go back up to the Object menu, Fitting, and the next one we'll try is Fit Content Proportionately. So it looks very similar, but I can see that it's not bringing that graphic all the way out to the bleed edges. So what that one just did for us was it put the entire graphic as big as it could inside of that frame. So out of those two options, I would say the first one probably worked better in this scenario. A couple of these other options under the fitting menu would distort that graphic. So if I were to fit frame to content, that actually just resized my frame and clipped it over to the size of the graphic. I'm going to undo that last step because I want my frame to stay consistent. And if I went back to Object, Fitting, this time if I did Fit Content Frame, it actually distorted my image. It's kind of hard to tell on this image itself because it's kind of an abstract looking graphic. But if I were to click on the graphic right now and look at the scale, this is the scale size of the graphic I put in here. So it got scaled down to 20% of its original size. But if I look at the width versus the height of this graphic, they actually don't match. They're very close, but they are distorted. So I can undo that last command, and I could go back and I could choose fitting, and like I said before, fill frame proportionately worked best for my image. Let's save that. File, save. Now another way that I could transform the graphic inside of the frame is more manual than those fitting options we just played around with. If I double click inside and I see I've got the brown bounding box around there, I can actually use these corner handles to resize my image inside the frame this way too. So if I were to go to any one of these center points, you can see I'm distorting my image that way. I can undo that. But if I go to my corner points, this is where I can scale that graphic more proportionately. Now if I go and I start dragging, okay, I'm changing the width and the height at the same time, but I'm still distorting it. The trick to keep it proportional is to add your Shift key in there, and then it keeps that ratio proportional. So you could manually resize it and crop it. And I could also, when I see the hand on my cursor, I could click and drag inside and reposition my graphic inside of that frame. So whatever method you want to use for fitting your graphic inside that frame, you can. I would just ask that it go from bleed edge to bleed edge and that there's no white gaps around those edges. I will click out into the pasteboard and save. The next step is going to be adding text. T on your keyboard will take you to your type tool. And I can see my cursor has that I-beam attached to it. And what it wants is for you to dedicate a text frame area where you can place your text. So text, we would normally want to keep it inside the margin areas. So I'll go to the inside left margin first. I'll hold my mouse key down and then drag over to the right margin and release. And I can see I have a blinking cursor in there right now. Right there. And what I also did was I just zoomed in a little bit. On a PC, the easiest way to zoom is hold your Control key down and hit your plus sign to zoom in, or your minus sign to zoom out. On a Mac, you're going to hold your Command key down and do the same thing. Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out. You can use your scroll bars to reposition your document either horizontally or vertically. And we're going to insert some text in here. We'll type out Adobe Design Suite and then the name and year of the semester that we're in. So I'll type in Adobe Design Suite, hit my enter or return key, and type in fall 2020. It's very little, so I want to adjust the font and the font size. I'll take my cursor and run across all my text to select it. In the right sidebar, halfway down, if you're on your type tool, you should see the character panel. My font right now is a Minion Pro, so I could change that to a different font. If you click on a font that has an arrow next to it, you'll see that you have different versions of that font. So you can select a font and you can select a font family. So these different versions of that same font make up that font family. And then I can adjust the font size. So where you see the smaller T next to the larger T is font size. I can just click the arrows to adjust it. I could also go to that drop-down menu and get some of the preset sizes a little bit quicker. I could also just simply click inside of that box and type in the point size that I want. Now maybe I want to change the alignment of my text. That's done under the paragraph panel. So right now I can see my text is set to align left. I'm going to change it to align center. And I can kind of click out for a second to see how it looks. I can also do a Control-0 on a PC or a Command-0 on a Mac. And what that does is it fits page in window, so I can see the entire document. Now the color of my font right now is black, and we put it on top of a graphic. So that might be difficult to read depending on what your graphic looks like. So we have a couple options. We can either reposition where we put that text frame, or we can change the fill color of our text. I'm going to start with changing the fill color. You want to make sure that you have all of your text selected. In my properties panel on the right side, you'll see appearance. And underneath that I see fill, and there's a white box with a black T next to it. This is referring to the color of our text. So if I click inside that black T that opens up our color options. So this first set of options is in our swatches area. It's going to be your standard default set of colors that InDesign gives you. We could also go up to that color palette up there, and this is where I see black and white right now, but this is where you could use your color spectrum to create a new color. And we also have gradient options at the end. For today, in this first lab that we're doing for InDesign, I'm just going to stick with the default set of swatch colors, and I can change the color to paper. InDesign refers to white as paper. If I click to the side here, now you can see my font is in white. Let's save the document. And I want to reposition my text. So I'm on my type tool right now. If I click in there, it thinks I want to type or adjust the formatting of my text. So if I wanted to reposition the text in the frame, I would want to go up to my selection tool, the black arrow in the upper left corner of my toolbar. And now I can see that text frame has the bounding box. So I could click right inside and reposition the whole thing that way. And I could also use any one of the handles on the text frame to change the size of it. So wherever you would like to put your text positioned at, whatever font size you want, font color, that's up to you. You're the designer, so you can adjust those options and get it how you'd like. And even if you didn't want a center alignment, you don't have to have one. You can choose any one of those other alignments in there as well. So we have two objects in this document. We have the graphic frame and we have the text frame. I do want to point out that some of you may be seeing a lower quality version of your image and you're thinking, it wasn't that blurry before, why does it look kind of blurry in here? Well, that's because InDesign works at a lower resolution preview so that it gives you a faster workflow. Think of a very large document that contains tons of pictures in it. It's going to take a lot longer to process high resolution versions of those pictures each time you scale in or out or move about your image. So what you can turn on is called the Overprint Preview. If you go up to the View menu at the top, the very top option is Overprint Preview. And that should give you a cleaner, more high quality resolution preview of what your graphic looks like. We'll save our document. And we're almost done with the design portion of this project, but we need to look at some of the other elements in this document. If we go up to the Window menu at the top, this is a list of the different panels that we have available in InDesign that we can open or close. The ones that have check marks next to them indicate panels that are already open on this right sidebar. We are going to open the Links panel. And inside the Links panel, it should show you the name of the one graphic that you placed inside this image. And it should also show you what page it's on. When we're adding graphics to our InDesign document, we always want to make sure that there's no issues with it. So potential issues could be that image is missing from the original folder location and InDesign can't locate it. Maybe the graphic has been updated in Photoshop and it needs to update it in your InDesign document. but it would have a warning sign right in this area here, the status area of that link. And ours says okay. So we didn't move it. It's found. Everything's good there. And next what we'll do is package our files so that we can have every portion of our InDesign document compiled into one folder that we could then pass along to a client or pre-press, but it keeps everything together in one centralized location. If we go up to our File menu, down to Package, we'll go through this left sidebar. So as I go through them, you'll see that the main area switches as we do that. In the summary at the very top, it's telling us we used one font, the font is not missing, there's nothing to worry about there. I do have a warning sign next to my links and images, and that's warning that the color space of my graphic that I used is in an RGB color profile. If this InDesign document were to be printed, it would require the images to be in a CMYK color profile. For this usage in this lab, an RGB color space is no problem. It's also telling us that we have used 4 process inks, no spot colors were used, and basically this is the same as everything that we would go down the left sidebar and see. It's showing me the link name, the fonts, the colors. So everything's good. We're ready to package. So I think of packaging like I'm going on a trip and I pull out my suitcase and I'm going to throw all of my images in there, all my fonts, my InDesign document, a PDF of the document, so that it's all in one packaged suitcase. So go ahead and click the button Package. Navigate back into your Adobe Design Suite folder and then into your Lab 4 ID cover page folder. And we'll put our package document right inside Lab 4 folder. Now, if I look down here at the folder name, it takes on the same naming that we named our document, but it adds a .folder extension to it. So we'll just leave that the same, and then we'll go through some of these checkboxes here. We want to copy our fonts, we want to copy our linked graphics, we want to update those graphic links, including document hyphenation exceptions is not applicable in this document, and neither is hidden fonts and links in non-printed content. You can have those checked. It won't really make a difference, but they're not necessary. We can choose to automatically include an IDML document, and that would allow us to open up our document in older versions of InDesign. So that might not be a bad idea. It won't hurt anything. And then I also like to include a PDF. So as long as we're in the correct location, we've got the correct boxes checked, including that PDF, we'll click the Package button. It might give you a warning from the font police saying that it's illegal to pirate fonts and unlawfully give fonts away to people, but we are packaging for ourselves, so we're not breaking any laws. These fonts that we used are system fonts, so that's fine. This warning is telling me that the PDF generation resulted in 1 or more warnings. I'm going to hit the OK button, and we'll check out that PDF document in a moment. navigate down to your folders on a PC. I can see I have a folder icon down in my dock. On a Mac, you can click on the Finder in your dock, and that will also open up a navigation window. So I have my Adobe Design Suite folder open in the Finder or in the Folders navigational window. I'm outside of InDesign, basically on the desktop, looking through my different documents. And I'll locate folder number Lab 4 ID cover page. I'll open that up and we'll take a look at these documents inside that folder. So we have our original InDesign document that we created, and then above that I see this additional IDLK document, and what that is a temporary file. And that's because I have this InDesign document currently open. So if I were to close my InDesign document and go back to the folder, you can see that temporary file is now gone. So now I have the original InDesign document and I have the packaged folder that we created. I'll open up this packaged folder and we'll take a look at what we have in here. I have a PDF file, I have an InDesign document, and I have the IDML document. I have a links folder. If I click in there, there's the image that I placed inside the frame. So it made a copy of that image and placed it in here. It's still located in your original photo library folder. I'll go back a level and I'll open up the PDF document. It did give me a warning that something was wrong with my PDF. I'm thinking it's probably okay, but I'll open up Acrobat to check that out. And I can do a Control-0. And I do have, I notice, an unsightly white frame around my text box. And that might be what that warning was about, because I know I didn't put a stroke color on that frame. So I'll have to investigate that further. I'll close this PDF. And I can minimize it. Here's the packaged folder I still have open. I'm going to open up the InDesign file inside that packaged folder. I'm on my selection tool, and if I click my text frame, I can actually see that I do have a white stroke applied to this text frame, and that's why it was showing off. I'm going to take that off. So I can do that in my right sidebar under the Properties panel. You'll locate where it says Appearance. So this is the appearance of the frame itself, not necessarily the text, but the frame that the text is located in. So my fill color has none set to it, and the stroke has white. So if I click once on that stroke color, you can see it has paper applied, and I'll click the none. I'll resave my document, and I can create another PDF to replace that original one. So I can do that manually by going up to the File menu, and I could go down to Export PDF Presets, and I'll select High Quality Print. So we want to replace the original PDF that was in our packaged folder. So if you look at your navigational trail You should be inside your Adobe Design Suite folder, inside your Lab number 4 ID cover page folder, and then also into your packaged InDesign folder. So I can see there's the PDF that I want to replace. I'm going to keep the name the same, and Adobe PDF Print is my format. Click the Save. Do I want to replace it? Yes. Okay, so this gives us all of our PDFing options in here. There's not really a whole lot that we're going to have to do, especially for that minor change that I just created. But since we're in here, what we could do is we could add crop marks and bleeds to our PDF document. So I want to export as a page, and I also want to view my PDF after exporting. On the left sidebar, I'll choose Marks and Bleeds. Marks are non-printing elements that aren't on the live portions of your document. It's going to help with the production and the pre-press and preparing those files. So what we can do is add in crop marks. Crop marks are used to trim down a document, usually a document that has a bleed applied to it, which our document does. We extended that graphic frame out to the bleed edges, which would technically get trimmed down. So we'll choose to have crop marks added, and now under the bleed and slug area, because we had already set up that bleed, what we could click is this Use Document Bleed Settings, and it automatically adds the 0.125 inch bleed all the way around. Now we're ready to export, and it's opening up in Acrobat for me, and there I can see I don't have that white stroke around my text frame. If I zoom into one of the corners, I can see my crop marks. So there's going to be a vertical crop mark and a horizontal crop mark at each corner, and my graphic frame extends beyond those crop marks. So that's what we want. It gives us that 1/8 of an inch excess in case there is accidental shifting that happens to the document. So that looks good. I can close Adobe Acrobat, and I'll just click OK on that background task alert. That's no problem. And I'll also close out my InDesign document. Yes, I can save it. Next, we'll navigate back into our folder, that packaged folder, and I can see that my PDF has been updated. We're all ready to go. So I actually want to go back a level in my navigational trail. So I want to go right inside folder Lab 4 ID cover page, and I can see I've got my packaged folder and also that original InDesign file. So what we'll do is we'll zip or compress our packaged folder so that it turns those multiple documents into one single document that's easier to share and upload, and it brings the file size down a little bit and just makes it more compatible for sharing and archiving. So what I'll do is I'll just click once on my packaged folder, and on a PC you should be able to right click on that folder and tell it to send to compressed zipped folder. On a Mac, you should just be able to right click on that folder and select zipped folder. So it automatically creates this additional file. If I look at the file extension, it added a .zip file extension to the end of that file, and the icon also has a little zipper on it. So think back to the suitcase that we threw all of our assets in there to package, and now we got to zip up that suitcase so that nothing falls out. And this zipped file is what you'll submit to Canvas, and it should just be one file to upload. So that is InDesign basics. We covered graphic frames and fitting, adding a simple text frame on top of it. We talked about bleeds and packaging our document. We did a little pre-flighting to check for errors, and then we zipped and compressed that packaged folder to be submitted. Thank you for watching.